Did you find the idea of founder mode like a little empowering? Because like I guess that's all about being in the weeds.
I found it an excuse. All right, we need an excuse for being like intolerable. Founder mode. I was like, oh, we're in founder mode, so you guys got to be okay with us. Like, so come on. I do think too quickly as companies scale, the founders' behaviors that got you from 0 to 1 or whatever it is are quickly deemed no longer cool or relevant in the company. Do you stop doing it too fast, or do you keep meddling? And which of those is right? At different times are probably different things.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Founders in Arms podcast with me, Immad and co-founder and CEO of Mercury.
And I'm Raj Suri, co-founder of Lima and Tribe. And today we have an iconic entrepreneur based in the Boston area, Dave Balter, legendary founder with, founded multiple companies that have done really well and been a role model to me my whole career. So, he's already starting to feel uncomfortable. How do I get started like describing what you've done, Dave? It's like so many different things now at this point. When did your entrepreneur career start? I was looking at your LinkedIn yesterday. I was like, did it start in the 90s? Like when? I don't think you and I have ever talked about this.
I don't think we have. First of all, iconic. I mean, I don't. Geez, man. I've been called a lot of things, but I'm not sure if I've ever made it that far. But thank you. I was told about a year ago that I had to learn how to take a compliment, so I'm practicing. Thank you. Yeah. First, the first real company was early 90s, was about 94, 95. I was a clerk in a retail store, and my co-clerk turned to me and said, "I have a company. My partner hates me. Would you be my partner?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds like a great idea." And I learned pretty quick why his partner hated him, but that was the beginning. That was really the beginning. Yeah.
What company was that? What kind of company was it?
That was a promotional merchandise company for the entertainment industry. So we made, shirts and stickers and stuff for touring bands and big movies and things like that. Very low margin business, high volume, amazing perks, backstage everywhere and meeting famous people and all that, but not a growth business unless you were going to, dominate the industry. And that was unlikely for us. So, yeah.
Did you always think you'd be an entrepreneur, or you kind of accidentally stumbled into it with that conversation?
So stumbled into it. One of the crowning moments of our animosity towards each other as co-founders was about a year in. We had an office on Orchard Street in New York, and it was like a street front office. Anyway, we were in like a raging fight, and he was yelling at me and I'm yelling at him. And he in the middle said, I can't remember, you're only 24. You're not even an entrepreneur. Okay. And I had no idea what the term meant. I went home and I looked up what entrepreneur meant. I didn't know. I was like, what is that? I was like so out of the loop. But I never intended. And then when that business sold, it sold under duress during after 9/11. We sold it, but it was very painful. I went out and tried to get a job, and everybody was like, "Oh, you're an entrepreneur. You're not gonna." And I'm like, "No, I really want a job. I don't want to."
Yeah, you're like, "I'm not even an entrepreneur."
Yeah, I'm not. I don't even know what that is. This guy told me I'm not one, but yeah, I never intended. It was never intended. I was.
Oh, so that went for 7 years.
What happened was after 2 years, we broke up. The way it went down is I said, we can't work together. I was the finance arm. So I said, I'll value the company. I'll give you a number and you can either buy or sell. I don't care, but like, we got to break up. So he said, okay, I gave him the number. He said, I'm going to buy you. I said, great. I started another company in the same space that was more web oriented because the web was coming, it was coming mid 90s. And about 3 months later, my bank called and said, oh, this guy, I won't say his name, but this guy, he's asked for a loan on your capital. So I had to call him and be like, dude, you can't buy me with a loan on my money. And he's like, I can't. And I'm like, no, you can't. This is the type of dealing I had to give. Anyway, so I had to buy that company because I stood by my word. He's like, I have no money. So I bought that. I had the other company and then merged the two and lasted another couple of years before we sold it. It's very painful.
Ran it solo for a while, right?
I ran it solo for the last 3.5 years or so. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like 90s stories are so different, like, pre-incubator, people didn't know what entrepreneur was. Like, it's so different now, right? It's like there's a huge founder community now. Back then, it was like almost no one.
No one. And they didn't, and it wasn't cool. I mean, I don't know if it's cool now, but like my friends and others, it's cooler now. I mean, my friends were like, why don't you get a job? And I'm like, believe me, I'd like a job. This was so painful for 7 years. Like, I'd like a job. But anyway, I had cool stickers and t-shirts. So, I got that out of it. Yeah.
I guess you've done so many exits. I mean, and companies. What are you best known for? What are you most proud of?
Well, those are two really different things. I would say I'm probably most known for Buzz Agent. Buzz Agent was, cover story of the New York Times Magazine and, sort of pre-social media network of 1 million people that, shared products and services with others. I'd say I'm most proud of the craft of people. Like companies are made up of, figuring out how to work with a co-founder. I mean, that first journey was probably a great one for me to learn really quickly what it means to co-found a business with someone. It's a marriage. And what does that look like? What's your value set and what types of people do you want around that can work? Are they relentless? Are they responsible? So I'm most proud, I think, of trying to design cultures that can win and can be, I would say maybe enjoyable for the people that like what we do. That's a hard thing to figure out. And I think we figured it out pretty quickly. So yeah.
I think from my perspective, like just seeing Dave from his kind of reputation, in Boston and also getting a chance to know him, like he was known as being like a formidable entrepreneur from my career when it started like 2007. He was one of the few Boston area entrepreneurs who had made it to scale at that point. Like very few. It's a very small set of people.
And there was very few entrepreneurs anywhere that had made it to scale in 2007.
Yeah. So he had kind of like in the 2000s was kind of like a dead era for companies. But he was one of the ones who had actually made this company, Buzz Agent, to a substantial scale with a very unique idea. I think, Dave, you should talk about the idea. It was a very creative idea that, you want to talk about what Buzz Agent did?
Sure. I just want to comment on something. Like first of all, I think you're amazing, Raj. Like I look to you as like, I'm like, what I got to do what that guy does. He's really good. The second is like, the journey is so full of self-doubt all the way through that when you talk about like I'm formidable in 2007, I think of I can't even believe that people were letting me do what I was trying to do. And I didn't know, I didn't know what I was doing. I was trying to figure it out on the fly, And so maybe in a reflection for this discussion, but self-doubt is through everything, as much as you might see something.
Do you feel like you still have some self-doubt or like now you're over it?
Totally. No, yeah. I mean, every stage is a different form of self-doubt. Like I'm no longer of like, can I stand something up? Can I make it work? Can I inspire people? I'm now at like, God, I'm not really great at full scale. Yeah. And I doubt that I'm the guy, I'm like, am I the guy for full scale? I don't know, I'm not sure, but like,
it's like a hedonic treadmill of like accomplishment. It's like, you're like, oh man, like you always set yourself a bigger objective and you're like, I don't know if I could do this.
It's totally true. I mean, I look, I look to, I'm in crypto now, with our crypto analytics business. I look at Jeremy Allaire. Okay. Jeremy Allaire built Cold Fusion, he built, I can't remember the name of the company, but built Cold Fusion. He's currently running Circle, which is going to go public in crypto. That guy's a monster. He's amazing. He scales. Okay. And I'm like, what, God, can I scale? I don't know if I can scale like that. There's always doubt around everything. I don't know. I don't know if Raj, you feel doubt, but
yeah. There's always doubt about the next level. You always want to can you figure it out? I think entrepreneurs we get bored easily, right? So we're always like, okay, we got that done, and then we feel happy for an hour or something, and then the next day we're like, how do we get to the next big milestone? So that's pretty common, and I think the doubt is actually what we like.
I'm actually worried if things are too easy, then I'm like, oh man, I haven't set myself a hard enough challenge, and what am I even doing here? And maybe someone, there's even doubt around easy things being too easy. If that makes sense.
We didn't become entrepreneurs. We didn't choose to keep doing this. I mean, you kind of fell into it by accident, Dave, but you've kept doing it. You've chosen to do it time and time again. 4 companies now, 5 companies. I don't know how many companies you've done now in back to back. Yeah.
7. Wow.
7. Yeah. 7.
I thought it'd be interesting to come back to this question of co-founders. I know I had a lot of issues with my first 2 companies and co-founders around them. And I guess, Dave, how many of your companies have had co-founders and how many have not? And then did you come up with a magic answer on how to have a great pick a great co-founder and
Well, I'll say this. The first one was really terrible, as we've talked about. And I've actually thought a lot about running into him now, or we're probably, I don't even know what his career is, but I wouldn't mind having a drink with him and being like, dude, we were kids. And what's your journey been? I mean, I don't know. I don't hate the human. I hated the process. You know what I mean? Anyway, let's see, the next company, I had 4 other people that I co-founded with, but they started as employees. I treated them like co-founders. And we all lasted through most of it. I still see those people, but I think the difference there, I became like a autocrat. It was my business with 4 people I sort of co-associated with. And after the exit, we took care of people, but I feel a little like they weren't treated like equity co-founders the way you might equity co-found today. Everyone did fine, but it wasn't as obvious. We didn't split it equally or anything. After that, I made a big mistake in co-founding, which is I thought I'd had it all figured out. I see this now a lot with people. It's successful. So I'm going to pluck the best people from each company and build a new co-founding team out of them. And what I learned there pretty quick was every company is a different culture. Just because you were an A in one culture doesn't mean you're an A in another. And when you put sometimes those 2 cultures together, they negate each other. And so now you have sort of kind of weird, they're not the same founders. So that got messy quick. I've had situations where I founded the company. I mean, we could talk about smarter. I founded the company, became chairman pretty quickly, put a CEO in place, and then somewhere in the middle ended up dating a person in the company. She was already in the company, and then she was a contractor. This now sounds really bad, but she was a contractor and I was dating her. I was not running the company, but they asked me to come in as CEO. And so now I came in, and my co-founders struggled with the fact that I was dating this person, which I struggled. I'm like, this isn't going to work. I'm CEO now. That became very challenging. But those co-founders, I don't know if I feel like they felt equal, which I feel really bad about. Everybody did well there.
I think there's not really too many general lessons. Is kind of what we're learning here, Dave. Right?
Yeah, there's not many. Let me give you the last one. Let me give you the last one because it's most important. Flip side, what I did is there were 2 people in the last company who were really good. They fit my gaps. Okay. One was a technologist, one was a data scientist. So you look for people that are going to sort of fill what you're not going to do, no overlap. And they were ready to take the big journey. Okay. Most of the lessons I found was people aren't really ready for the journey, and you find an imbalance of what it takes to go from 0 to success. So you need to find people that fill your gaps or vice versa, and people ready to go on the journey. outside of that, if you have cultural alignment, you're going to be fine. But those would probably be the three things.
My experience has been like, I think it's very hard to know if you can work with someone unless you worked with them before. And I think when you're young, there's just not that many people you worked with before that are like entrepreneurial, and then you end up kind of finding someone. And I think it's very hard to like, I mean, it works obviously sometimes, but I think it's hard to go like, oh, actually, we've never worked together, but we are the perfect culture and we are the perfect mix of like personalities and skill set. Like the last two companies, Mercury and my previous one, I did with people I'd worked with extensively. With Mercury, I'd worked with the kind of two co-founders for 5 years before starting Mercury. So I just like, I mean, it's not, no one's perfect, but like, you can work with like each other's downsides or faults.
Can I ask you on that? Would you then recommend, like, let's say you're going to go start something and you haven't worked with with who you might co-found with? Would you recommend a trial period? We're not really co-founders yet. Let's just work together a bit. Like, what would you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I think the difficult part of a trial period is it's like, these startups are so long and there's like so much like emotional volatility. Like, I just don't know how you can capture much of that in like a 3-month trial period. I don't know what my recommendation would be. I mean, it's better than nothing. But I have a hard time imagining, wow, like you went through a trial period. Now you really know you can work with someone. It just seems like pretty hard to do. I also think, I mean, even if you work with someone in a normal job, like, what are they like as a co-founder is like probably a very different thing, right? Like, a job doesn't have the same kind of like stresses on people. I think it's really hard. I mean, this is why, especially early startups, like this is the main reason they fail. Like it's co-founder issues. And it's hard to.
Yeah,
I would say 90 days is a good time to know whether you've got, some alignment. Like, can you, I find in the first 90 days, like the test for me is, it's a 10-hour car ride test, but like you're basically like, do I call this person or be like, hey, you got a minute? Like there's so many people that. Right. Well, there's so many people that I'm like, I don't want to deal. I don't want to call them. And that's really important. Like, are they someone that, because you're going to have ups and downs. Is this someone you're going to call? Is this someone you're going to be like, let's talk about it? That matters. Are you able to communicate?
Yeah, that's a good test.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, I think, one thing, just about comment about people in general, I think you mentioned this. I really don't like this classification of like A, B, and C, that's very commonly used in Silicon Valley and tech industry. Because I think,
like tier A, tier B people, that kind of thing?
Yeah. I don't think people are absolutely one or the other. I think, if you put me in like some situation, I could be a C player, right? If you put me in a different situation, I could be an A player. So it's like the situation and the people around you matter a lot. And people don't take that into account. It's very sort of black and white when people describe like the quality of other folks.
But do you think, and I feel like I remember chatting to you about this, and you feel like anyone well managed enough can be a tier A player, right? That's your like general belief.
Well, not anybody, but like you need to have some baseline, right? But like there are people who are A in some player and then, A in some situations and then C in other situations. And I've seen this happen. Like people who I've worked with who I thought were really great go with someone else and they don't succeed to the same level and vice versa. Two people who I didn't work with well, go somewhere else and succeed.
Actually, a really good example of this is like there's people who, at early Mercury were killing it, right? They like established big projects and and then like at later stage in Mercury, they're just like, wow, this person just like can't get things done. And it's like because especially when you work with them for many years, you're like, I know this person can do these things. And it's very frustrating because I'm like, oh, I know they can do it. And why are they not like now doing the same thing that they were doing at that stage? So that is a fair point that it is very situational whether someone can be killer at your company, at your stage, in the role that you give them and all this things.
Very rare for people to go through every stage and be highly effective. Maybe as a founder or founders, because actually even as founders, it's very rare. There's people that, don't last all the way to the journey or come in later or whatever. But I could count on maybe sub two hands, how many people out of all the many hundreds or whatever that have come through the companies that actually went through 0 to all the way to the end and succeeded at every stage.
Yeah. One thing that I really dislike is this like idea of like golden handcuffs that like some company, like, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to make it so like if you leave us within 3 months, you lose your stock options, and like have these like, water falling equity structures. So like people are stuck at the company. I'm like, why do you want people stuck at your company? Like that's the exact opposite. I want people to leave the company if they don't want to be here. Like I don't want people stuck here. That would be like the worst case scenario. So I don't understand why entrepreneurs think like that.
You want to give them unvested equity if they leave?
Well, if they vested equity, then they vested it, and it shouldn't be expired. Like there shouldn't be any I mean, yes, you want incentive for them to stay, but there shouldn't be any like unnatural forced situation. I mean, it does happen if you give someone 4 years vesting, and then your company valuation grows a lot. Maybe in the 4th year, there's like a very large incentive. But in some ways, it's not that bad because like they've been there 3 years, so they're like 75% of the incentive is baked in. So it's impossible to avoid. But I think people do these unnatural things to trap people, and it's always seemed like a very unhealthy way to run a company. And I've talked to employees at companies going like, hey, I can't leave this company, I hate it here. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's like, that's not good. Like, no, everyone knows you hate it there probably who works there. Like that's like a really bad situation for everyone.
I mean, there are companies, I mean, we've all heard of the companies that, I'll pay you, I think Tony at Zappos did, I'll pay you money to leave.
Yeah, that's the other extreme. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mm-hmm. like if you don't want to be here, don't worry about it. Like I'll pay you, but yeah.
Dave, you actually wrote a book about like interpersonal dynamics at companies. Like, can you talk about your book?
The Humility Imperative. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah. Of course, I've read it many times. So
many times. Yeah. Yeah. Right. If you need to go to sleep, feel free to read it before bed. Yeah. Look, I think the title comes from sort of the arc of Buzz Agent, where you said it, iconic. There were times everybody around was like, you are, whatever, you figured it out, and even with all the self-doubt, eventually you sort of are like, maybe I have. And in my case, I stopped listening and went through a very tough reckoning of like, we could lose the company. And, the humility imperative was learning how to, it's not being confident, but how to have humility to listen to others and sort of understand that, it's not your journey, it's everybody's journey. And, so the book is comprised of many of those types of situations. I'm a studier of people, I think, in a lot of ways. I'm fascinated by organizational design and how things work. And, so, in the Humility Imperative, there's lots of stories about, of how to behave with people or lessons of where I had to understand this is the DNA that makes people work or not work. And it's a set of stories. So there's, you can read it pretty quick.
Is there one good lesson you have for founders that like, maybe they raise a big round and everyone's telling like congratulations to them and they're like, feeling all of this thing to like, how do they stay humble in that kind of situation? I
mean, there's definitely a part on, raising big rounds is not, that's a tactic, not a strategy. Like you can raise money, that's a tactic. But I would say it's more, the one that people seem to always bring up is something called sponge and stone, which is I am definitely not the smartest person in the room. There are people you can look around and be like, they're brilliant, like they're the smartest in the room. I always won through sponge and stone behavior, which is sponge is like, I just get in a room and I sponge off everybody. I am like picking up information. I'm taking, right now, the chairman of our board is this guy, Shakar Ghosh, who teaches AI and blockchain at Harvard Business School. And I get in a room with him on AI and I come out and I am just like, I'm now dripping information. I'm not taking it as my own, but like I'm sponging off that guy. Like this is just so much info. I will do that with everybody. Doesn't matter. And stone is like, sometimes you just got to work harder than everybody else. I do not give up. I'm highly relentless. That's our culture. It's not burnout level, but like I'm going to figure it out. And, I think if people are tuned to that, it equalizes everybody's skill. Like you could be the smartest person ever and, have degrees out the wazoo and all the rest. But if you're sponge and stone, you can sort of equate equally. You're you're using the tool sets you have to go create value. I think people just need to remember that. Like, it's all around.
It's like a cultural mantra for your company. Basically, it's like, this is how you should behave. You should be sponges. You should be stones, like this type of thing.
Yes, very much so.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I like the meta idea. I really like if you can turn an idea into like a metaphor. I find it's like so much more memorable when you can like take this thing and like we have this metaphor at Mercury. We call it the cosmic cube. And it's just like this idea of like expanding features in one axis, expanding customer sets in another axis, and expanding like quality in the third axis. But I mean, it's like, imagine if I said like, oh, we care about features, types of customers and quality. It's just not as memorable as like, oh, we have the cosmic cube and this defines our product strategy. And I think these like metaphors are such a powerful way to like make things memorable and powerful at a company. So I like that sponge and stone.
Yeah, we used a boost and boast at Presto. It's not metaphor, but it's alliteration. It's another poetic technique. Boost and boast. I think I talked about it before, but boost is about, our only focus is like increasing the ROI and value to our customers about boost, and boast is telling the stories of how we increasing ROI and value to new customers, and that's the only thing we care about. That's the only thing we're going to focus on, and it made a big difference once I wrote that memo. I felt culturally for the company. And it's a memo I still think about because it's a great sort of first principle thinking about what it takes for a company to be successful. And there's a few others I wrote, I think like that, and that was pretty helpful. But yeah, I think poetic techniques, create some, memorability. Dave, one thing that strikes me about you in general is like you seem like a very high EQ person, right? Regardless, right? You probably have been high EQ for a long time, but you still feel like you've been learning and getting better at being like a leader and a manager, right? Like it's kind of remarkable that, in Silicon Valley, you have a lot of people who high IQ, but not high EQ, right? There's a lot of, that's a very common sort of person, but even high EQ people have a lot to learn, right? It's like, it's not like it comes natural. There's a lot to learn about leading. It's kind of what you've experienced in your career, right?
I mean, I would say the least. Still every day. I mean, I'm in. You're coming. Today we're talking, and I have had two people in the company close to my world, and one who was a head of product, who was on my leadership team. One was a head of commercial development. I do a lot on the sales side. One of the head of commercials. Both didn't work out within 90 days. Okay. And there are two things. One is the self-doubt side where I'm like, God, like after all this time, I can't figure out how to like hire right or vet people on the way in. It was values mismatch all the way through. I'm an asshole, obviously, because they didn't work with me well. Like, oh my God, the self-doubt, like what is happening? And then on the other side is the success side of it, which we talk a lot about. We have a very, very, very fragile, important culture at Flipside. And it's like an organism that when people come in that don't match it, it's like the organism attacks it. One of our values is responsibility. And if people don't uphold their own, it becomes so evident to everybody else that like around the company, everyone's coming in and like attacking it and like, hey, I need this person to do this. And they then that person gets uncomfortable. And then the organism like chews it up and spits them out. Okay. And so I've got two sides to it. I got the side where I'm like, why can't I make it work? Like it should work all the time. It never works all the time, but it should work all the time. And then the other of like, maybe we have succeeded because they're both not here after 90 days. And that's an art unto itself to like move fast and make change. Those are all, still learning. I don't know the right answer, but we're still learning.
Immad, you've gone through a lot of evolution as well as like a leader and manager, right? I mean, I remember, you talked at when you were co-founding Mercury and you were starting it in the beginning, and this has been this is the largest scale company you've ever run. Like, how's your journey been learning how to manage?
It's kind of funny you said the high EQ thing because I identify as a low EQ person. So I've always seen like my yeah, I mean, I think I care about people, but I'm not good at like reading people's emotions or that kind of thing. So I've always been kind of paranoid that I'm like a bad manager because of this. And I think actually like being paranoid that you're bad at something is actually helpful in getting better at it. So I think by now I'm probably okay at it, but I was definitely bad at it, like whatever, 10, 15 years ago when I first became a manager. And I do think there is an element of being a CEO that is like not about managing, that's about leading. And I think leading and managing are different things. And it's, it's better actually to not sometimes overemphasize management as a CEO. I mean, like, let me try to describe the difference, at least how I see it. I think leading is when you like put forward a vision, and you like set an example of how we should do it, and you do whatever it takes to get there. Whereas managing, I think, is a lot more like, at least in my impression, is doing one-on-ones, understanding what someone is going through, trying to like give them the, I guess go back to what you said, Raj, like try to set them up for success and all those things. And both of them are obviously really important, but I think sometimes people think they're the same thing, and get like a little bit stuck in like, oh, I'm a great manager. I think the manager mode, founder mode thing kind of goes back to that. Although, there's nothing wrong with being a great manager either. But like, I think it's the consequence of only being a manager and not being a leader are like bad as well. At least that's like a learning for me.
Yeah. Dave, as I recall, you've had many doubts. It sounds like you have about being CEO of your companies, right? Like you've been a founder of these many companies, and you still have these doubts, even though you have so much experience being CEO. Why is that?
If I knew why, I'd solve it. I mean, I'm like, I live in because every day is like a wide awake new journey that I don't want to say you have a lot of playbooks that you use and you understand how to get from A to B. Every day you're making very important split decisions about, big things to do or not do, or little things to do or not do. I think part of my self-doubt comes, so like I feel good about that. I think my self-doubt comes from the fact that I am extremely hands-on, and the downside of that is it feels to me like I can't get out of being in the weeds enough. And, when I say that to people in the company, like, no, you're like, I need you on this part. And I'm like, yeah, but if I was really good, I wouldn't be doing that anymore. Like someone else would be doing that. And so the doubt always comes at like, am I holding back because I won't let go of the things I'm good at? You got to fire yourself, all that stuff. I don't know.
Did you find the idea of founder mode like a little empowering? Because like, I guess that's all about being in the weeds, or did you reject the idea?
My co-founders really loved it. They were like, we need to tell everybody that like, this is just what we're doing. And we are this, I found it an excuse. It's like we need an excuse for being like intolerable. Founder mode. I was like, oh, we're in founder mode, so you guys got to be okay with us. Like, so come on. I think it's an interesting idea. I do think. Here's maybe underneath it. I think that too quickly as companies scale, the founders' behaviors that got you from 0 to 1 or whatever it is, are quickly deemed a little bit, like no longer cool or relevant in the company. Like they'll like take huge risk and make broad decisions and just like do stuff. No longer feels okay. Okay. And so, it is treated almost at a certain stage like you got to go over here a bit and be a good manager and like step above it and like let people do their thing. They maybe don't think the same way. And I think people stop doing it too fast. That is for sure. It's everything is always a dichotomy. So it's, do you stop doing it too fast or do you keep meddling, and which of those is right? At different times are probably different things, but
there's this very interesting question that I've thought about deeply, and I don't think it's been answered well in general. Like, it's like, what is the role of a CEO? right? And like, there's all these different things, VCs will give you like a few bullets, like you got to raise, you got to make sure there's cash, you got to do this, you got to do that. And I've always thought it's very simple. It's just to make the company work. And that is the only thing that the CEO is responsible for. And whatever it takes to make the company work, the CEO must do it. And so whether that's getting in the weeds and like figuring out problems, sometimes that's needed. But sometimes it's also needed for the CEO to step back and hire a great team and like let them do their thing. So like there's no right or wrong answer, but it is very time dependent and situation dependent. But if you just follow this North Star of like the CEO must do what it takes to make the company work, then everything sort of makes sense, at least to me, right? Like it's like, okay, sales isn't working. I got to go and double down on sales.
It's just unfulfilling though, Raj, because it's like, what am I supposed to learn from that? It's like, do whatever it takes. Like, let's go.
Well, the CEO would know what's broken and what's not broken. At least a good CEO would know. So, and you have to go and work on what's not working, basically, right? And
do you mind if we do a hard fork in this conversation? I'm just interested in Dave's take on this. Obviously, elections coming up in 5 days or so. I feel like crypto people in general are more on the Trump side. What's your take as someone in the crypto industry?
He's a big MAGA guy, Dave.
God, you're killing me. I'll do my own fork and then I'll come back to it. We have spent the better part of a year. I'm in Massachusetts. We have on the ballot this year question 4, which is the legalization of psychedelics for mental health. In that, not retail, properly prescribed for mental health. This needs to happen. So this is my plug. We'll see what happens in 5 days.
Well, the FDA just rejected MDMA therapy.
That's correct. And we were involved in some of that too. And I don't want to say for the right reasons. I think it's a good process. Synthetics are different from plants, and I think that's a good process. Anyway, I care a lot about plant medicine. I'm more interested in that happening in this election than almost anything. So I'll just say that.
And that's just in Massachusetts. Like that's just a local state.
So it's a state initiative. So MDMA was federal, and that goes to the FDA. There's a sort of faction of the psychedelic science space that is like the only way to get there is through the states. So Oregon has been legalized. Colorado, this would be the first East Coast state to put a practice, and each state is learning. This is 21 plus. Decrim, no retail, which was very important to me. But each state has a little different. So just Massachusetts. There are others that will follow suit, I am sure. Anyway, on the election, this is really tough. I mean, I will just, I'll make enemies or not wherever I go, but fuck Trump. I'm just going to say that all the way through. I mean, this is, evil lives among us, and, we're all watching really, I think, terrible things. That's my point of view. I'm just going to put it out there. I will reflect one conversation with somebody in our industry, with my wife and a friend of ours in the space who said, I have to vote for Trump. And she said, why? He said, because it's my business and he supports my business and my business will get killed otherwise. And she said, yeah, but what about your daughters? And he said, yeah, my wife's pretty upset with me. Okay. And that sticks with me where there are people who will choose maybe, their business over life, which I very much struggle with that. So I am not a Trump supporter. I don't like politics really at all. I will tell you that to begin with. I don't find any of it refreshing. I'm not so much a fan of the other side. But I do not believe that, dividing a nation and rhetoric and lies are the way to get there. So
I guess worth diving a little bit more into why they think their business won't survive under the Democrats. And I think maybe people outside crypto don't get it, but I think a lot of crypto people feel there's been basically a war on crypto for the last 4 years.
There has. SEC Chairman Gensler has been, litigating, helping people sort of succeed through litigation or not succeed through litigation. I mean, it has been no rules have been laid out. It has been very unclear. And yeah, the SEC under the Democratic framing has been terrible. It's been terrible for the industry.
And for some reason, Elizabeth Warren was like super anti-crypto, right?
She's anti-crypto for all sorts of reasons. I don't know.
What is the reason? I don't actually, because
she's Massachusetts too, by the way.
Yeah, she's Massachusetts too. Because look, the downside of crypto is that without regulation and when there's so much money around, there are people that are people could get taken. Her thing is like the average person get taken advantage of. And I could point to 1,000 ways that happens in non-crypto, by the way, but that is true. Like crypto is a wild west and someone could get taken advantage of, and that's her platform. But the way to get there isn't through a lack of clarity by the SEC and then litigation of everybody. The Coinbase goes to the SEC who says you should go public. Like, we are proving everything. You should go public. And then the SEC turns around later and sues Coinbase for, like, wait a second, you're the ones who approved it. That's not a great way to do it. Now, here's the problem on the other side. Trump has realized that if there's a lot of voters who like crypto and single issue voters. And if I say I'm going to do crypto, wow, they're going to come on my side. Okay. The problem with that for me is, first of all, the guy never tells the truth, so who the hell knows what happens on the other side once he's in. But more importantly, I think he's going to be a disaster for crypto because he's going to be doing things that make the negative side of it worse. He's already got like shit coins he's making that are terrible that he's taking 75% of the profit from. If he does that over and over, that's only going to hurt the industry. Like, that's not going to help us. That's only going to make it more Wild West. And so, like, it smells good on the way in. I don't think it's going to help us in the long run become a sustainable industry. And that's important to me. Strong opinions. You brought up politics. Now like we're out.
Well, at least you're not ambiguous in your perspective.
Tis the season.
I mean, do you think that the Democrats could change their position and be? I mean, I think this year they've, I guess, coming up to the politics, they've been way more friendly to crypto, right?
Here is the great thing that Trump has done. He put it on the center stage. It is a mass market awareness thing now. The Democrats' hands have been forced effectively to realize this is real. There's a lot of people that care about it. There is a lack of clarity, and I think, it's brought everybody else to the table. So that is good. Like, it's at the right level now.
There's also very little to win by being anti-crypto. Like, it's not like there's another set of people that are like, wow, I'm a single issue voter on anti-crypto. Right? It's only downside.
No.
It's a little bit like legalization of marijuana and stuff like that, like, or other things. It's like some people who care about it really care about it. The people who don't care about it don't care about it that much.
Don't care about it. Yeah. That's right. So I think we'll see a change. I think Gensler's, moving on or whatever, and we'll see a change. You've got, you've people in the SEC. There are people on the, at the level of commissioners who are anti-Gensler's stance. They're kind of,
doesn't the SEC basically lose every case that they go after on this thing? Like, I guess there's a lot of cases where they don't even go.
They've lost a lot, but they've won. Like CZ at Binance, there was like a $4 billion.
Oh yeah, that was huge.
Yeah, there's a couple that they're winning. They lose most of the ones when you get under the covers and see the ones where they're sort of just attacking people because, whatever. They're those ones they lose. And there's been all sorts of that stuff happening, but they've won a few and. And I think, take not in the US, but at, 3 Arrow Capital, which definitely defrauded investors, much like it happens, by the way, in traditional hedge funds. So, like the SEC should be stopping that. That is terrible stuff. Yep. Like, don't do that. But for the good actors, they should give them rules to work within.
Yeah. I always wonder why the SEC and just generally the government arms don't cooperate more with business. Like, they don't have business liaisons. They don't have productive conversations. Like, they talk mostly through litigation, and lawyers, right? Versus feels like there's no business people in the government who want to just have a conversation how can we make this better for the country?
I mean, I think there is normally a reasonable amount of collaboration. I think that's probably a little far. I think there was a feeling in 2020-ish that big tech was too big and that government was cares about little people. And then I think this idea of what is big tech and little tech was not really differentiated. So there was, I think, at least my sense of it was the Democrats came in with a mandate to say tech is anti-people, and we have to control it and like restrict it, and that made it like more of a us versus them kind of thing versus like previous regulatory administrations. At least that's my sense of it.
Immad, you haven't commented on the election publicly, I think. Do you have an endorsement you'd like to make today?
I don't like either politician, so I am not making any endorsements. And in California, what's actually insane in San Francisco and California is the number of things they ask you to vote on. I'm like, the city college admin. I'm like, I don't even know who these people are, and I don't like. I am not at all like capable of figuring out who these people are. And why? Yeah, I wish there was just like. I mean, probably like I used to when I was a kid, I was like direct democracy. Technology will make it so we can vote every single week. I will open my phone and I will vote on every issue. And as an adult, I'm like, wow, republics work very well, and we should not do direct democracy at all. I'm just like, I wish in San Francisco I just voted on the mayor and the mayor just made decisions, and then like it was like, and they all sound very reasonable. It's like the government now needs $10 billion more to pay for water, and I'm like, yeah, of course they need $10 billion to pay for water, but like, what about all the other money they're getting? Like, why do I need to decide this $10 billion is the right allocation of money for water? It's just like this crazy process, and I had to like do research, and like I had like 2 or 3 voter guides open. Like, to be a responsible voter in San Francisco is like a pretty complicated process.
You just got to choose on the person whether you like the person's name or not.
Is it the same ethnicity?
I mean, truly, we've all been there. You open up like a councilman for X, and you're looking at 2 names. You're like, I don't even know who's who on this. Do I vote? How do I vote? I'll pick the top one. I don't, like I agree. It can be very hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope people are not voting on whether they like the name.
I hope
that
so
would be
too,
the worst case scenario.
People do for sure. Like,
people do for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's really it's definitely a downside of democracy, and by the way, I mean the ballots themselves are like so old school. Like you thinking we can even see videos or something like that, like of people. There's really nothing there except like a paragraph, right? And then you got to see who else endorsed them. Nowadays, I just follow the voter guides. The Grow SF one, the Tech one, and stuff. I'm sure you probably looked at that one.
Well, that's funny. There's a Grow SF one, and then there's a Pirate Wars one for SF in California. And I kind of like opening them both because the things that they agree on are normally correct, and then the things they disagree on deserve research. One is like the Grow SF is still fairly democratic, and the other one is like, I guess conservative, but still California conservative. But it's kind of, if you have both of them open, then you can like be informed better. I don't like following anything. I like to be independently minded.
I like that. Theory. Good entrepreneur right there.
This seems like a good point to wrap it.
This is the first time you guys have met, right?
Yeah. First time. Yeah. But really good meeting you, Dave.
First of many. This will be,
I hope so.
We'll be talking about this in 20 years. Like, remember that time? We talked about politics, and now the world is over because, somebody blew it up. But at least we'll be here talking about entrepreneurship.
Maybe our minds in a computer vat will be talking to each other.
Yes. Your AI, and I'm my AI, and we'll be,
Okay.
Well, thanks everyone for listening. And follow us on all the social sites and join our tribe group. And thank you everyone for listening.
All right. Bye, everyone.